Attention gun owners. Starting April 2026, one court ruling could reshape lawsuits aimed at your rights. Last week, a 72-year-old named Patricia in Seattle got a terrifying certified call. A recorded voice warned her a new lawsuit might end local gun sales. They claimed damages of $11,750,000 and blamed companies, not criminals. Patricia's stomach dropped because she owns 2 legal rifles and trains safely. If you don't understand this, you could be misled and scared into silence. Here's what separates people who protect their rights from people who lose ground. You're watching this now, and that's a smart first move. But if you're not subscribed, you'll miss the next update when it matters. These court decisions change fast, and headlines often twist the meaning. Fix that right now, then stay with me until the final step. A unanimous Supreme Court decision just slammed a door shut on a major tactic. That tactic isn't about passing laws through voters or lawmakers, it's about using massive lawsuits to punish makers for crimes they didn't commit. If that tactic worked, it would squeeze legal access without banning anything. That's why this matters to you, even if you never visit a courtroom. The case wasn't about whether criminals do terrible things with guns. We already know criminals break laws and they don't ask permission. The real question was, who should pay when a third person commits violence? Some groups argued the manufacturer should pay, even after a legal sale. That idea sounds simple, but it's dangerous when you follow it through. Think about a different product for a second, like a kitchen knife. If someone buys a knife legally, then harms a neighbor, who's at fault? You'd blame the criminal, not the factory that stamped steel and shipped boxes. The court used that same basic logic applied to lawful firearms sales. When that logic stands, your legal market stays alive for ordinary citizens. Let me tell you about Patricia. She's 72 years old and lives in Seattle, Washington near her grandkids. She volunteers at a community garden and keeps her home defense plan simple. On a rainy Tuesday, she got a call from a public safety investigator. He said a foreign government wanted U.S. makers punished for cartel violence. He warned her prices could jump by $3,185 per year if companies folded. 2 days later, Patricia opened her mailbox and found a scary news flyer. It claimed gun companies fuel chaos and that courts were finally agreeing. Her hand shook because she's careful and hates being painted as reckless. She searched online and saw angry posts saying the lawsuit would go national. She called a friend, then called her local range instructor for clarity. She felt trapped between fear, shame, and the worry of being blamed. Then the story got worse in her head. Because rumors travel faster than facts. Someone told her the case meant all rifles will be treated as illegal. Another person said her favorite maker could go bankrupt within 6 months. They tossed around numbers like $7,140 per household with no real source. Patricia even considered selling her guns, even though she followed every rule. That's the pressure these cases create, even before any verdict happens. Patricia finally found a plain language breakdown from a trusted legal educator. It explained the Supreme Court blocked that kind of blame-shifting lawsuit. It didn't say companies can break laws or sell to criminals freely. It said lawful sales don't create automatic liability for later crimes. Patricia felt her shoulders drop, like she could breathe again. She kept her training plan and saved $1,275 by delaying a panic purchase. Now let's be honest, here's what frustrates me about this whole mess. A lot of these lawsuits aren't about public safety or helping victims. They're built to drain money, force settlements, and scare companies into retreat. It's like attacking your grocery store because a thief stole food elsewhere. You didn't steal, you didn't plan it, but you still get blamed. That kind of thinking should make any fair-minded person angry. Because if they can do it to gun makers, they can do it to anyone. They can target ammo sellers, then holster makers, then instructors, then ranges. They can squeeze the entire legal chain until you can't buy responsibly. No vote required, no debate required, just paperwork and courtroom costs. That's why a clear ruling matters, even if you hate politics. It's about fairness, cause and effect, and protecting lawful behavior. Let me tell you about Thomas. He's 74 years old and lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, in a quiet neighborhood. He's a retired mechanic who still fixes lawnmowers for neighbors. One afternoon, he got a letter from a city attorney's office. It claimed his local shop contributed to harm by selling legal products. The letter demanded records and hinted at penalties totaling $268,130. Thomas felt sick because he'd passed checks and kept every receipt. A week later, the shop owner called Thomas in a panic. The owner said insurers might refuse coverage if the city escalated the case. Thomas worried his favorite store could close, leaving only long drives. He also worried about being labeled part of the problem at church. So he tried to calm down and learn what the law really allowed. He started making calls, but every answer sounded different and confusing. Then the pressure increased because the city threatened a wider lawsuit campaign. They floated a figure of $1,940,750 to recover community costs. A local news segment ran clips that implied buyers were automatically suspect. Thomas's neighbor asked, "Why would you support a store being sued?" That stung, because Thomas supports safety courses and safe storage. He felt cornered, angry, and tired of being treated like a villain. He also feared deadlines because the letter demanded a response in 10 days. Thomas contacted a state-level firearms rights group for general information. They told him a recent Supreme Court decision strengthened protections for lawful commerce. They explained that liability isn't endless just because a product was misused. Thomas shared that explanation with his neighbor, without yelling or insulting. The neighbor didn't fully agree, but the conversation became less hostile. Thomas saved $2,460 by not switching to overpriced private transfers in panic. Most importantly, he learned to separate scary headlines from actual legal meaning. Quick pause, because I need to know something about you. What state are you watching from right now, and why does it matter? Rules can vary a lot, and local officials push different policies. When you comment your state, it helps me tailor future examples better. It also helps this video reach more people who need calm information today. Now let's talk about the second unanimous Supreme Court decision you should know. This one isn't about manufacturers, it's about how prosecutors charge one event. Some prosecutors try to stack overlapping gun-related charges like bricks. That stacking can multiply prison exposure, even when it's one incident. The Constitution contains a promise against double punishment for the same act. The court reminded everyone that promise still matters, especially in gun cases. To keep this simple, imagine two laws that describe the same behavior. One law punishes using a gun during a violent felony. Another law punishes the same moment if someone dies during that felony. In some places, they charged both, even though it was one timeline. That can turn one case into a mountain of mandatory extra years. The court said you don't get to punish twice without clear authorization. This doesn't mean criminals get a free pass, so don't mishear me. If someone commits separate crimes on separate occasions, charges can multiply. But when it's one act, you shouldn't face two overlapping punishments. That principle protects ordinary people too, especially in messy, fast-moving incidents. It also pushes prosecutors to charge carefully, not just throw everything at you. That's a win for fairness, even if you've never liked the justice system. Let me tell you about Karen. She's 69 years old and lives in Denver, Colorado, near a busy shopping area. She carries legally and took a defensive course after a break-in years ago. One night, she heard glass break and saw a stranger rushing inside her store. She yelled, the person ran, and chaos followed in seconds. Police arrived and treated Karen like a suspect before they treated her as a victim. She later learned charges could carry stacked penalties totaling 37 extra years. 2 weeks later, Karen's public defender explained the stacking problem. They said some statutes overlap, and prosecutors sometimes pile them on anyway. Karen felt her throat tighten because she'd never even had a speeding ticket. She lost sleep replaying the moment, wondering if she'd spoken wrong. She also worried about money because her savings were only $42,915. She tried to research online, but every post sounded like a shouting match. Then the case got scarier when a prosecutor mentioned maximum exposure. They listed 2 different gun enhancements tied to the same short event. Karen heard numbers like 22 years plus 18 years, back to back. She felt rage because it sounded like punishment multiplied for political points. Her family begged her to take a plea, even if she believed she was right. She felt trapped between fear of prison and fear of surrendering her future, and she faced time pressure because a plea deadline loomed in 7 days. Karen's attorney filed motions and cited a new Supreme Court interpretation. That interpretation clarified prosecutors can't double up overlapping penalties for one act. The judge still had to apply facts, but the legal ceiling dropped sharply. Karen's exposure fell by 15 years, changing the entire negotiation landscape. She didn't celebrate because it was still painful and expensive, but she kept her home, saved $9,340 in potential fines, and avoided panic choices. Her lesson was simple. You need calm legal strategy, not internet rage. Real quick, if you're getting value, hit the like button now. It tells the algorithm this isn't rage bait, it's useful information. That helps more responsible owners find it before misinformation spreads. It takes 2 seconds, and it really does make a difference. Go ahead and tap like, then keep listening for the action steps. Now let's connect the 2 decisions, because they work like a shield and a brake. The first decision blocks a lawsuit strategy that targets lawful commerce. The second decision limits charge stacking when one act triggers overlapping statutes. Together, they defend a basic principle: responsibility belongs to the responsible party. That principle protects your rights without excusing wrongdoing or ignoring victims. It's not about politics, it's about legal boundaries and honest cause and effect. Some people twist this and say, so companies can do anything now. No, they can't, and you shouldn't want that anyway. If a seller knowingly breaks rules or helps criminals, they can be punished. If a maker advertises illegal use or encourages crime, consequences can still follow. The point is narrower. Lawful sales to lawful buyers aren't automatic liability. That line matters because without it, lawsuits become backdoor bans. Here's what makes me angry, and I'm saying this plainly. Many headlines want you emotional because fear makes you share faster. They'll say, court protects violence, when the court actually protects legal logic. They'll frame you as careless, even if you train, store safely, and follow rules. That framing is meant to isolate you, so you stop speaking up. Don't give them that win, and don't let shame rewrite the truth. Let me tell you about Harold. He's 76 years old and lives in Jacksonville, Florida, in a small one-story home. He served in the Navy and keeps his life quiet and predictable. One morning, he found a notice on his door about a community nuisance suit. It accused several industries, including firearms, of creating unsafe conditions. The document listed a proposed settlement fund of $6,218,750 for one county alone. Harold's heart pounded because he pictured higher fees and fewer legal options. 3 days later, Harold's grandson asked if Harold's hobbies were dangerous. That question hurt because Harold taught safety like it was a sacred rule. Harold read the notice again and saw vague language that blamed supply chains. He worried the goal was to make stores stop selling, even to good people. He also worried about cost because his fixed income leaves little room. He considered canceling Range membership to save $58 monthly for legal uncertainty. That's how pressure works. It makes you shrink your life little by little. Then Harold saw a city council clip where someone demanded industry accountability. The speaker said lawsuits could force smart reforms without needing new laws. Harold felt anger rise because it sounded like punishment without voting. He called the council office and asked what lawful owners should do. A staffer gave him a non-answer and suggested he stay tuned. Harold felt dismissed, and that made him even more determined to learn. He also saw a hearing date only 19 days away, which added urgency. Harold met with a local attorney for a paid consult. The attorney explained how recent Supreme Court language limits broad blame theories. They talked about what lawful commerce protections mean and what exceptions exist. Harold learned to watch for specific allegations, not vague moral accusations. He wrote a calm email to his council member with clear questions. He also joined a local civic group and donated $125 to support legal education. Harold didn't panic by anything, and that saved him $2,715 in impulse spending. He replaced fear with a plan, and that's the shift you need too. Think of someone you care about who might fall for scary headlines. Maybe it's your parent, your neighbor, or your range buddy. They could make a costly mistake because they don't know the real rules. Share this video with them right now before the next rumor wave hits. Text the link today because good information is time-sensitive and protective. Now we move into the hopeful part because you're not powerless here. You don't need to be a lawyer to understand the big guardrails. You just need a simple framework for what these rulings do and don't do. They protect lawful behavior from being punished by guilt by association. They limit punishment stacking when one event triggers overlapping legal tools. And they remind courts that rights don't depend on which team is cheering. Hope matters, but hope without action turns into wishful thinking. So let's turn this into empowerment, with steps you can actually follow. These steps aren't about picking fights or posting angry comments all night. They're about protecting yourself, your family, and your future choices. If you do them calmly, you reduce risk and increase clarity. And clarity is what keeps you safe, not noise and panic. Here's exactly what you need to do. I'm giving you 5 steps, and each one is simple. You don't need to finish everything today, but start with step 1. Write these down on paper because stress makes you forget details. If you're watching on your phone, pause and open a notes app. Ready? Let's begin. And stay focused on what you can control. Step 1. Pick one trusted legal update source and follow it consistently. Choose calm educators who explain rulings in plain language, not outrage. If you can't name a source today, ask your range instructor for recommendations. When you evaluate a source, look for corrections and citations, not insults. This step reduces fear because it replaces rumors with stable information. Do it this week before another headline wave tries to hijack your emotions. Step 2. Review your state's basic carry and storage rules, even if you feel confident. Go to your state's official website, not a random forum screenshot. If the language is confusing, call a local firearms attorney for a short consult. When you call, say, "I want a preventive review, not representation today." Ask what common mistakes create legal problems during stops, calls, or disputes. This can save you $7,185 in avoidable costs, even without any criminal intent. Make the appointment within 10 days because prevention is cheaper than defense. Step 3. Document your responsible behavior in a simple, private folder. Keep proof of training, purchase records, and safe storage receipts if you have them. If you ever face accusations, documentation can help your attorney build credibility fast. Don't post this online and don't brag because privacy protects you. Write a one-page personal policy about safety, access, and where you don't carry. That policy helps you stay consistent under stress and avoid impulsive choices. Start this folder tonight, because small preparation beats big panic later. Step 4. Learn how to respond calmly during high-stress interactions with authorities. I'm not telling you to argue, I'm telling you to avoid self-inflicted harm. Before a traffic stop happens, decide you'll be polite, slow, and clear. Ask your attorney what your state requires you to disclose and when. If you don't know, your default should be respectful silence until you get counsel. That one habit can prevent misunderstandings that spiral into charges and expensive fights. Practice the calm tone now, because your voice changes when adrenaline hits. Step 5. Get involved locally in a way that fits your personality and comfort. Some people testify, some write emails, and some support legal education quietly. The goal is to keep lawful owners visible as normal, responsible community members. If a lawsuit campaign appears in your area, ask officials specific written questions. Ask, how does this target criminals and not lawful commerce and lawful buyers? Then request a public answer, because vague slogans shouldn't become policy by default. Do something within 30 days because local decisions can move faster than you expect. Let's review what we covered today. You learned how unanimous Supreme Court rulings can protect lawful behavior from broad blame. You saw how lawsuit strategies can threaten access without passing new laws. You also saw how charge stacking can inflate punishment for a single incident. Across the country, these fights affect millions of ordinary owners, not just activists. The stakes can reach thousands per household over time through cost and scarcity. You now have information worth real money, so use it with calm confidence. Here's a final punch you need to remember when fear spikes. Your rights don't vanish because someone else committed a crime, but your rights can erode if you stop paying attention and stop participating. Misinformation spreads fast, and it feeds on isolation and silence. Stay connected, stay calm, and don't let shame make decisions for you. One clear plan beats 10 angry posts every single time. If this helped, here's what to do next. Subscribe so you catch the next update before rumors take over again. Share this with someone who needs calm facts instead of panic. Comment your state or your situation, because I read comments when I can. Your engagement helps this reach responsible owners who don't know where to look. And if you want, tell me which part confused you so I can clarify it. Important disclaimer: this video is educational only, and it isn't legal, financial, or safety advice. Every situation is different, and laws vary by state and local policy. Talk to a licensed attorney before acting on anything you heard here. If you need financial guidance, consult a CPA or a qualified advisor. What works for one person may be wrong for your specific circumstances.